Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 63. I'm Michelle Hawk, and I'm here with my shaman sister, Katherine Bird. This podcast grew out of our friendship, our conversations, our work in the world, discussing who are we, what are we doing, how are we serving, and what the heck is going on with all of this spiritual awakening. And eventually, we did decide to make these conversations public so that you can participate in our inquiry. And, everything that we cover on this podcast is stuff that Kat and I talk about all the time. So you're getting a little peek into what we spend a whole lot of time thinking about and discussing and writing about personally, professionally, for ourselves, our clients, our peers, and what it means to do this work in the world. Today, we are so delighted to welcome special guest Georgette Star for a talk on soul stream life mapping. Georgette, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been really fun to just witness this divine convergence of both of you coming together here today.
Absolutely. It worked out. Catherine's in town to help me lead the retreat that we were at this weekend. So she was teaching Qigong, and this is a rare treat to get both of us in the same room.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So Georgette, I would love to share a little bit about how you and I became connected, and I'd love to ask you some questions with that too. But let me introduce everybody to you, since they don't really have the context yet. Georgette and I met through a mutual friend, Jennifer Elise, who we had also as a guest on our podcast last year to speak about her Empowered event. Actually, that was almost exactly a year ago, right? Yeah. And Jennifer connected Georgette and I, and we had a really wonderful conversation. Georgette offered me a reading like you are going to witness today, the Soul Stream Life Mapping reading, and we hit it off. So we asked her if she'd want to come on and talk to us, and thankfully she said yes.
Thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So Georgette, let's dive right in. Like before we get into the Soul Stream Life Mapping, I'd just love to hear anything that you would love to share with us about yourself or about your work in general.
Well, I always like to presence my mom. I'm going to show you a little picture for those of you who are actually seeing this. I don't know. Can you see her? Yeah, that's my mom, Shirley Green, and she is the transmission through which I received the methodology and the soul mapping system that I'm using today. And so I feel really blessed to have been born into a family that had an openness to this deep question about what is the real purpose of life and why am I here and what am I to do? Those very questions that you two are constantly asking and unpeeling the layers to find the deeper truth. And that was going on in the kitchen when I was a little girl, and I was listening to my mom and my godmother having these conversations, just like you two have these conversations. And it deeply went in as an imprint. And then later in my life, I started blossoming into my own gifts and powers as a healer and consulting with my mom and discovering that this mapping system was quite efficient and accurate. And it was just like a natural inclusion into my work. And now I'm teaching it to other transformational leaders, coaches, and healers. So my mom, her name's Shirley. I always love to presence her.
Amazing. That's such a beautiful story. I think especially because, a lot of people, as they're awakening and going through these processes and discovering who they are, they don't have that childhood connection to those questions and feeling supported, that's okay to, be kind of following this different drumbeat and doing this more kind of authentic work. And so there's a lot of people who have to do so much work to be able to kind of uncover those pieces. So to, have that early start in that way where you felt empowered to pursue this, this work is just such a beautiful thing. So yay, Shirley.
Yay, Shirley.
Yeah.
You welcome your presence and your energy into this conversation today.
Yeah. And the mystery of how that which is like truth is it just finds new forms of expression. The origination of this mapping system is probably so ancient it's not even recorded in history. but throughout time and cultures, it finds a way through different forms and it pops up in different places. And just the great mystery of all that's surfacing right now for all of us to easily access is pretty incredible.
Yes, and what a beautiful way for you to receive that transmission through your mom. So not only following the energetic lineage of this system of information and work in the world, but to receive it through your physical lineage too.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say about just the power of having the truth of who we are reflected back from someone else, like, that mother love transmission. You see your child, you look into their eyes and you see them. There's something really powerful about that. It's we all need that. And this mapping system is kind of an impersonal way that just provides that kind of reflection back. The soul feels it. And that gives us, it's like an activation so that we can quickly come back to that essential like patterning that we came here to be and express, and kind of let go of a lot of the conditioning and programming that's really not authentic to who we are. And in fact, I kind of see your function right now also as being this beautiful like mirroring effect for those who are listening and watching, because you too are also holding that, like that mirror of, what is that deeper truth of who you are, and how can we like breathe love and light into that and encourage that. So it feels really perfect for me to be here with you both today, and for everybody who's watching and listening.
Georgette, thank you so much for that reflection. Cheers. Yay. We're happy to hold that reflection. Thank you. And yeah, so you've told us a little bit of a background of this system. I'd love to hear more about what actually is this system. How can we wrap our brains around it a little bit more? And I know everybody, we can just kind of like see who's tuning in, and everybody on here, we're all seekers on the path. We all want to know what else is there that we can dive into and see.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to give you a really kind of nutshell version, and then we'll see what opens up from there. According to the tradition that I've been steeped in and trained, the soul kind of incarnates through a template, and the full name at birth and birth date is a mathematical sentence. It's the template. It's like our personal URL or our website for our cosmic address, and it contains within that numerical sentence, once it's decoded and you can actually create a map from it, information about the patterning that we took on in this lifetime for the purpose of bringing our greatest gifts and contribution to make, but also that which we came here to resolve, to dissolve, to heal, to transform, and to transcend. And so that cosmic address is really helpful, and that map, although the map is obviously not the territory, it's not the real, it can only point to something, but it's still useful to have a map. And that's really why I found it really effective for myself as a constant re-referencing, so that I can keep making decisions that are kind of recalibrate back to like that essential pre-birth mission that I came here to accomplish. And also in my work is to, as a tool to help my clients also constantly re-navigate back towards their essential sense of purpose and alignment with their code. So if you have any questions about that, please do ask.
We're just kind of letting that sink in for a minute. I've heard this already too, because Georgette offered me a reading, like I said, and it's just more layers of absorbing. Yeah. How about you?
Right. Well, I mean, when we're looking at, I think it's interesting to think about that, that which we come in with, and so often there are so many layers. There's so many different systems out there to be looking at, different forms of astrology and different forms of, body, like paying attention to what's going on in the physical body, and different ways that we're, trying, just reading your palm and trying to figure out all of these different systems that we have in order to learn about ourselves and to understand both our gifts and the things that we're here to offer and to give, and also the things that we're here to work through, and to, like you're saying, these pieces around transmutation, which, can give us an opportunity to be able to maybe accept, I think, in some ways, some of our more difficult life issues that we have that maybe otherwise we're just like, wow, I'm a real fuck up over here.
Yeah.
I can't figure this out, or why do I continue to have the same problem? There must be something really wrong with me, and instead be able to sit with something in a different way to uncover on another level of, oh, this is actually part of the mission, as part of the plan. Not just the I'm going to come and help people with this, but oh, I actually have to help myself with these things here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. I really appreciate that discernment, that in a sense, it's that which our deepest struggles, the places where we're suffering the most, is actually where we're have the greatest opportunity for true liberation. And in fact, if we were to think of life as the metaphor of the school, that would be our PhD program. Those areas are really awesome. They're what we actually came here for. And then the fruit of that is then we have more free energy to create with. The areas that are easy for us, well, that's not really a lot of development. It's just easy. And so there's a lot of support and encouragement for those who are on the path of awakening to embrace the suffering of the areas that are repetitious and challenging as their greatest opportunity for healing.
Absolutely. Well, Georgette, you're talking to two pretty devout students of life here. So this is, again, something that we love nerding out over and delving into. Let's pick this apart some more. And
Yes.
how can we uncover all the layers of the challenges? One thing that I think you're really speaking to is context. And, it's so easy where, when we, I always think of, for example, this one particular person who I met sort of randomly, who, and I don't, I'm not very close with him, but I just remember meeting him and thinking like, wow, you are so different from everything that it looks like you should have come from, so he looked very different from everybody else in his family. He spoke differently. He behaved completely differently. And it's he looked just sort of like he dropped in from who knows where. And yet reading the energy, it was like, oh, you're expressing the energy of all these underlying blueprints, right? This, you're using the, the personal URL as a really useful term of yes, there is all of the, the physical DNA, and then what I like to refer to as the soul DNA.
Totally.
Expressing so strongly in this person who looked like he didn't belong in this family or this context at all. And yet, that's where he came from. And so it absolutely does express and inform our life path, our life choices, and how we show up, our gifts, our shadows. And if we don't have a context or understanding for that, we can feel really lost. We can feel really like we don't belong, speaking to a lot of the wounding that a lot of people, particularly on this path and in this community, this process of awakening community, feel maybe before they discover that is I feel like I don't belong. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I came from. It's hard being human. It's hard understanding.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a deep, deep quest that you're both on, and that you're bringing this inquiry. It's such a deep, deep question and a deep mystery. And, as light, as consciousness itself, we embody, right? And then we get the DNA, we get the physical, we get the metaphysical. We have all these patterns. Even our life purpose is a pattern. Everything is a pattern. And yet consciousness itself. So, when we kind of follow the thread all the way back to the original point where that suffering, that sense of I don't belong, what's wrong with me, why don't I fit, begins, it's really, from my understanding at this point, it's at the moment of birth, because that's when we separate. Or apparently, we experience apparent separation. And then we constantly are interpreting that pain with all kinds of different meaning. And ultimately, all the healing journeys take us right down to that place of uncovering the deeper truth, which is that we are love and consciousness itself. But the path to that is, as you described, many layered and requires a lot of support and community. to hold the mirror, because the power of the pattern is so strong. It's so strong. And it's the inertia of the pattern is so deep that without holding the mirror for each other and really taking a stand for the deeper truth, it's very hard to break free of those karmic imprintings. Even if they're happy ones, they're still not full realization of that ultimate constant state of oneness and love and, peace.
Mm. So you've spoken here around life purpose and around that being coded into you. And, I think that that's something that so many people, I don't know if it's especially on this path. I think it's just so many people struggle with for almost maybe even their entire lifetime. A lot of people feel like maybe they're not fully living their life purpose, or what does that really mean, and what is my life purpose, and is this enough for this to be my life purpose, this thing that I'm doing, or these things that I'm doing. And so there's a lot of it kind of used to be that your life purpose was it was really planned, like you knew based on where you grew up and what your parents did, what your life purpose was going to be, to basically follow in their footsteps more or less and do what they did or what they sent you off to do and have a family. And that was it. And now we have so many options, so many potentialities and possibilities, that we're almost overwhelmed with this sense of what's my life purpose, and can get so caught up in how do I figure out what that is. So when you say it's coded in, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, it is coded in. But first I'd like to just acknowledge what I mean by purpose, by life purpose. Kind of the more conventional way of thinking about purpose is that it's my vocation, and it's like a thing. It's like a specific thing that I came here to do. And I think about it really differently. I think that purpose is, well, there's lots of facets to purpose, but our essential purpose is, it has two facets, or maybe even three. The first one is this personal evolution, like the soul's, like kind of completing, clearing, becoming more whole and complete, manifesting our gifts and powers in all the different realms of human development, personal development. Then there's how we contribute through that personal development to the collective evolution. So that's also part of our purpose. But purpose itself is the archetype that is the filter that's encoded into that soul's code that we express through, is unique to each individual. And as the purpose, and we'll be sharing a little bit today, giving an example of that, of life purpose and how that can embody in a person. It's an energy that we came here to be and to express. So just simply sitting here with me, with all of us gathered, you are broadcasting the frequency of your purpose by just being the essential frequency of you right now. There's nothing to do. There's nothing you could do that would change that, because regardless of what you believe or don't believe about yourself, it is who you are. I mean, it's what you came here to express. And I'm sure you've noticed this being around certain people. They can't help themselves. They're always like in the care providing role. Like they're just like instant mothers. They're always mothers, or they're instant leaders, always leaders, no matter if they want to be leaders or not. Everybody knows they're the leader. That it's like an essence. And we can't really get away from that, but we also don't have awareness of actually what it is. So the awareness plus the actual truth activates it. If we're aware of it, then we can own it. And with consciousness, then we can embody it and manifest it more fully. So there's the being aspect, and then there's the doing. And the doing, it changes over time as we evolve and change over time. I mean, I've had 3 distinct careers, and they're all the same. They're just another variation of the same thing, and it can even look different than you can imagine. So for example, I had a client yesterday. She is an editor, a copy editor. So she's all about, just perfection and typing and words, but her life purpose is the humanitarian healer. So what she expresses through the care and the way she attunes to her clients and how devoted she is to it and how much she'll give to it is coming from that big heart of the healing influence. She could care less about the editing. but it's that transmission of care that brings her into alignment with her purpose. Mm-hmm. So it's not always, it doesn't always look like what you think it would look like. It's the energy that's expressing through what you do or what we do, and it will change over a lifetime.
I think that's a really important distinction, Georgette, where the underlying blueprint isn't necessarily immediately like obvious in its correlation to how it's expressing. And this is something I remember, when I received my reading from you, I think I was a number 3, the artist. And in terms of the expression. And I mean, I don't, in looking at how that expresses for me, I'm not a painter. I love to sing, and that's, I think, my, most traditionally artistic means of expression. And yet for me, what you were saying is like the journey, the purpose of the artist is self-expression is the thing, right?
But I will say, for knowing Michelle, that her focus and commitment on artistic expression in her world, like the way that she sets up her healing space, the way that she does her healing work when she works with someone, the artistry that goes into working with the crystals that she works with, and the way that she sings in session, and the way that she there's a lot of, and the way that she facilitates ceremony. There's a lot.
I want one of those sessions.
Oh, everybody wants one of those sessions.
Come on over, Georgette.
So much artistry.
Yes.
It's very fleshed out artistry in her session work that's really beautiful to witness.
Yeah, and that's a great, the more that's embodied, really owned, your whole life will become an art. It's the art of living, and it's the beauty way path. So that's just an emanation that comes through you. It will constantly change forms. And that's another good example where other people might see, in us more than what we can see in ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that reflection, and just knowing that as you'll be telling us about these archetypes, and Katherine will be receiving a live reading, by the way.
Yes.
We'll get to see her archetype, and knowing that the expression, it's something that I love how you said that, Georgette. It's like you can't help but live that. You can't help but have this essence, this core essence, bleed through everything, and really accentuate the flavor of how are you actually showing up, regardless of whatever the how is.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's on our end.
No. Okay.
No, sorry, that's my other phone I forgot about.
That's okay, no problem. And so Georgette, we've kind of touched upon the why should we pay attention to this? Why do we care? But I'd love to hear, really, in your opinion, what have you seen in yourself and in your people that you facilitated for as a real benefit to knowing this and having this piece of information?
Well, we were talking earlier about, Kat, you were talking about how it's such an unmet need, and especially for those who are waking up to have a sense of purpose. I mean, there's a growing, and there's just an awareness that it's an intuitive awareness that we have a mission here, and that there is a purpose, and that in fact, it's what gives our life meaning. I remember Oprah once saying something really simple. She said, happiness is knowing your purpose and connecting with others. And so it's so fundamental. There is so much scientific research now from all the leading universities about the power, the effect of purpose on the physical body, in our relationships with others, and even our productivity in the marketplace. So it's just, generally, there's a whole industry devoted to it, the purpose revolution. There's a lot of, there's a lot of juice around this topic. And what I find is that, it's so easy to get lost, to get distracted, to get overwhelmed, to get caught in the loops of our karmic patterning, that if we don't have a really powerful and truly aligned North Star, which is our purpose, to be guided by, it's very hard to find an anchor or an orientation to help bring us back to center when the storms of life knock us off path. And so I find purpose to be kind of a fundamental, like, inner guidance system for navigating the rough waters of awakening and coming back on, back online. And I would say that's like most essentially how I find that particular piece of the code to be so helpful and for my clients and for myself. I just keep coming back to it. And for me now, I've actualized my potential in that area in many, many ways for many years. And yet there's always new levels and layers. And as you can imagine, at a spectrum of human development, there's no end to it, right? Because we're constantly evolving. So there's new skills and competencies, but there's also darker shadows. So I'm still learning in my own journey about my unconscious. The unconscious is still becoming conscious, and I'm expanding like in both directions. And if I didn't understand and know what my life purpose is, I wouldn't understand some of the unique blocks or challenges that I struggle with, because they're classic to that archetype. And it just is helpful for me. It's like, oh yeah, that's just my pattern. Mm-hmm. And this is the unconscious or unevolved, or, there's something that's still not cleared in that area of that part of my development. And it just takes it out of the personal, like making it like you were describing earlier, like, oh, it's a piece of crap. This is just an area that is still holding some unprocessed, unresolved energy that's trapped and needs to be brought into awareness and resolved and dissolved. Mm. So yeah, there's really no end. It sounds like it's such simple information, and it is, but it's also so profound if we can only let it in.
Usually the super profound things are actually astonishingly simple. And
right?
Then whatever attachments we have or beliefs we have about, like, oh, my purpose can't be that easy. Like, it can't be that, like, that's just so obvious. It's got to be something more complicated. No, really, actually, it is that.
Yeah. I'll confess, like, something I just recently realized more fully. My life purpose archetype is the humanitarian healer, which is represented in the system by the number 9. It's a mathematical mapping system. The dark side, or the unconscious energy of the humanitarian, is the martyr. And that is the one who will just serve, selfless service, but underneath it, there's like something that's it's not truly selfless. There's something about that. It's gaining something from giving. And I found that in myself one day. I got triggered in a way, and it came up, and I realized that sometimes there have been times where I'm giving, and it's to make myself feel better about myself. It's really more of like from an ego place, of like an unconscious place of not knowing that I'm essentially already God or consciousness itself. Mm-hmm. And, it revealed to me that sometimes that beautiful, open, loving, constantly loving, generous contribution is really coming from an unintegrated place. So that's how my life purpose archetypal understanding is still serving me. My awakening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that we get to, it's like we decide, okay, what game am I going to play? What game am I going to play? And what are all the rules that I'm going to make up that I'm going to make myself completely unaware of, and then try to figure out over time, so that, we can, get to know ourselves and get to know this aspect of this particular, like you're saying, this very unique code that every single individual has. And, how can I play in that and struggle in that and figure that one out and know it the most, to the greatest.
Absolutely.
That is.
Yeah. So, I also want to just insert a quick note to point people back to our Healing the Archetypes episode that we did last year sometime, like end of last year, as we are talking about these archetypes. And Georgette, I hope you're going to clue us into what are these archetypes.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Thank you. And speaking about the light and the shadow aspects of working with the archetypes, go back and check that one out in case you missed it. We also have the Royal Archetypes episode, the Queen and the King, at Royal Archetypes of the Divine Feminine and Masculine. So in case you missed those, we've got another couple episodes to fill out your context a little bit with that. But on that note, Georgette, would you
Yeah, I'll jump right in and share a little bit, and then we'll do a demonstration reading, a little mini reading, just to kind of ground the idea. And also, I just want everyone to know that at the end of our session today, our meeting, I'm going to offer a way for everyone to easily access their life purpose archetype and a PDF download report about that, so you can have that information and start to integrate that into your life right away.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Georgette.
Yeah, you're welcome. So my mom, Shirley, taught me that this life is really the journey of the soul, and that there are 9 pathways of the soul. And these are 9 pathways of human development, and they each correspond to a number. The numbers 1 through 9, and they're tremendously deep, but I'm just going to name them really briefly today. And I thought it would be fun to just give you a little visual aid for those of you who are actually watching as I go quickly through them. So if you happen to have the number 1 as your life purpose archetype, this point, the dot, the number 1 is the leader, and that shape and the point is the sacred geometry for that archetype. And the leader is the beginning. It's the I will be the one. It is very much about like an arrow from inspiration to action. The archetype of number 2 looks a little bit like a yin and yang symbol, and it is really very much about that. It's about polarity, it's about partnership, and it's described as the peacemaker archetype. The number 3, which is that creative self-expression, you can see that little sacred geometric triangle there, is the artist of life, or the art of living. The number 4 is the builder. It's the square in sacred geometry. The number 5 is the change agent, and this is also the freedom lover, and it's a pentagram, a 5-pointed star. The number 6 is the life purpose archetype of the care provider. It's a 6-pointed star in this geometric form. This is a 7-pointed star and is the scientist mystic life purpose archetype. The octagon, or the 8-pointed star, is the number 8, and it's manifestation, or the manifester. And then finally, the 9-pointed star and the archetype of the humanitarian healer. So, with that said, and the time that we have, I'm wondering if it would be all right if we just jumped into your reading. Kat?
Let's jump into my reading.
You ready for this?
I don't know. Everybody's going to know something about me.
Here's your life purpose.
Well,
I don't know. It could be anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little bit more of a complete, what I would call more of like a core jewel, like more facets of the jewel of you than only your life purpose, because it feels like it would be helpful to just kind of fill in some of the archetypal information. This is not personal information. It's archetypal information. You will receive it in the way that you understand it. And I might ask you some questions as we go along. But in a sense, a soul's code, that cosmic URL, all of the different facets and all the information that can rise out and provide that map is all pointed towards purpose. So it's like the highlight. And your life purpose is described by the number 5. And as an archetype, like I would describe you as a freedom-loving change catalyst. Your essential energy is here to...
How's that feel?
Yeah. So
great. Check.
Keep listening. Part of the 5 is freedom. It's like the key word for or the key value is freedom. That's the highest value for the sense of purpose. And there's a freedom to be playfully alive in the senses. So it's described also as like exploring the garden of life. So there's a real energy or patterning around coming into the body and really feeling alive in the body and experiencing all the senses and trying everything once, that kind of like adventure, to be in life as an adventure. And it's also sometimes described as the traveler. The traveler is not only like the more conventional idea of traveling, like from here to Mexico, but it's also like the traveler in dimensions, the traveler in thought. It's like always interested in what's over there. There's a constant interest and quest for what's happening in that meadow over there. And when I see this archetypal energy, and it's all, of course, interconnected with lots of other facets, but I would describe this part of you as like a beautiful wild horse that likes to have her space and freedom and loves to see what's next. You know, like, let's jump over that corral. Like, we built the corral as a catalyst for change. You have an immense skill set as a healer. So you have like an incarnational, like massive treasure chest of skills and capacities you draw from. But the actual like manifestation or form is to catalyze change and movement. And when you feel like movement is happening, then it's like there's a ding, there's an alignment there for you. I'm on track. I'm moving. My clients are moving. The people I love and serve are in movement. So I'm going to stop for a minute and just see how that part of what I'm sharing, like what that brings up for you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I've always been very, very freedom loving, very devoted to independence and doing what I want, and you know, needing a lot of space. Like, I need so much space, and I'm very challenged by needing to like fit into what's going on with other people. Like, oh, you have needs over there, like I need my freedom. What are you talking about? And to have a lot of space and to be changing a lot. Like, I've always had, you know, especially before this, like I would change careers constantly as far as what I was doing to make money. I would, you know, want to change my job all of the time and change focus of study. And I've studied so many things, and you know, even I've moved a lot in my lifetime. And even as a small child, I loved to move. And everybody always says as a child, they're like, oh, it was so traumatic. Just moving is the worst thing ever for children. And I was like, let's go. I'm packing my bags. Let's get out of here. I'm ready for the next place.
Yeah, those are all like a natural feeling in your body and being of what that feels like to be like in that sense of constant, to its fullest extent. And as a transformational leader, like your energy is here to contribute to paradigm shifts, like to like real like change. And that's the big global picture, you know? And then of course, as a little girl, it's like, oh, I love to move. Let's just move. Like, there's a courageousness that most people are not feeling about change. Most people hit the edge of a change and they're like, structure, we stay with the structure. And the 5 is all about, yeah, I value structure, but I understand structure provides a way for me to fly away and come back. It, you know, doesn't have to limit my freedom. Mm-hmm. So there's a willingness to adventure and to try new things. And it's, as a force in society, it's the force of progress. Without having you and people who carry this archetype, we wouldn't move. We wouldn't want to change things from how they are. It can also stir up the pot because it's a catalyst for change. So if you enter into a stuck system, your very presence could start to agitate the system.
Mm-hmm. You're a catalyst.
Yeah.
Whenever we have a podcast, we have change agent and artist right here. Let's express and let's create change. And
yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So, you know, just a nutshell version, but just even feeling that resonating in yourself, and actually everyone who right now who is listening or watching, this archetype of the change agent is in all of us. All of these 9 pathways of the soul, we all must develop and function within and continue to master. For you, Kat, though, it's your broadcast frequency.
Yeah.
And so we all want to bring that part of us up to a higher level of function and capacity. And you are going to help us to do that because you can't help it. It's just being you. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. And you are a great team that way. I can really see that.
Yay.
Yeah, for sure. I think Michelle actually gives me some structure in some way. She kind of reins me in of like, because I'm off to the next thing already, probably. If it wasn't for Michelle, I would just be, okay, did that, bye.
Yeah. And that's good to know. That's part of the, the challenge of the gift. It's like that impulse to keep moving. Like we have to keep checking it. Just to make sure the wild horse, has a place to come back to if it wants to, yeah, I have a friend I've lived, best friend who has this archetype, and she's constant. It's like everything, like she has to like really use discernment before she stops things, because she's always wanting to change. And just to know it's the wild horse, and to just check in and see if it's aligned with what your heart most deeply desires.
Yeah. And I would say for me, knowing that about myself, like, having that awareness is what has given me the desire and the awareness to do things like, a lot of Qigong and energy work that's very grounding and structural, and to formulate structure into my business and make plans and commitments and those things, which really have been such a struggle in my life, to be like, what you want? I need to make a plan for 6 months from now where I'm going to be. That doesn't seem right. So that huge struggle within me, I've had to lean into to be able to do what I do.
Absolutely.
And have that place to come home to. Otherwise, I would never get anything.
Well, I'm not sure if that's totally true, because I also see in your code that you also are a manifester. So even, you might manifest people to help you ground, but and we all serve each other. We're all complex and organized differently, total snowflakes. Everyone is so incredibly unique. And it's so beautiful when you find partners and collaborators where you sync up like this. It's the way it should be. We should be sharing our journeys and supporting each other in our work and in our different gifts and powers. So I just want to say a couple more things about your, this little mini reading.
Okay, great.
So the purpose, that broadcast frequency, is a freedom lover. I described it as the change catalyst. But the healer part of you, it's all there. Those are all the skills that you're using. You're drawing from those. But once again, the catalyst is the frequency of purpose. Your soul's greatest need, so you already said it, is leadership. It's independence. It's very much to thine own self be true. It's very important to stay aligned. It's the number one. It's like that I will be the one, and the backbone along the spine. It's like really like standing in your own authenticity, your own authority, your own clarity. And then from that place, you can collaborate and co-create. And as long as you stay in that place, your soul will be happy. If you ever defer and give up that, there will be, your wild horse woman will not be happy. And that leadership part of you will not be happy. Like that's a very strong vibration. It's also the part that must be very creatively original. It's like, do your own thing in your own way. It's like if you have two of the same kind of earrings, you want to wear different ones on each ears.
Look what she's got. I don't know if you can see right now.
I didn't even put any others in. I just put in.
But yeah, it's the number one. So you're also an instigator, an initiator, and that's a beautiful combination, because 5 as a change agent can also be a real promoter. Like whatever you believe in, you have that leadership ability, and you will just bring that energy through like an arrow. There's 2 other facets of that core jewel I just wanted to briefly mention, all related to even more deep alignment with purpose for you. And that is that you also mentioned this already in relationship to your freedom. But there's another archetype. It's described as the scientist mystic. And this is the part of you that really needs to pull away from others. You have to withdraw from outer focus, to discover all that is within. It's the scientist who's always asking questions and always doubting, like keep the question open. Don't ever like say this is ultimate truth. And once you have that quiet inner place where you can go back to your alignment, then you will download, you'll receive inspiration and be guided from within. And that's the mystic part of you. And obviously, you know, shaman sisters, that's what you do. Yeah. So the mystic scientist is another facet of the jewel of you. Mm. And, you know, sometimes when people hear these terms, like they're not used to thinking of themselves that way. But if you tune into it as a pure archetype, you will begin to feel the resonance. Mm-hmm. I mean, I even felt it in you in the way you were formulating your questions. Like there's a kind of intellect, like you're taking in all the information and it's processing through in a very specific way, and it comes out with a really deep question. Mm. Yeah. So all of these facets, the change agent, the leader, the scientist mystic, and the manifester are like this hologram that are like at the heart of your cosmic address, your URL, the imprint that you came in with. It's not you, because you are light itself, but it's the gifts that you have to work with in the way that is unique for you. And of course, there's other facets to all of this, but yeah. So ultimately, all of these different, what may seem like different aspects, all kind of integrate into just one synthesized whole sense of wholeness. And that usually happens later in life, because the first half of life we're filling in where there was missing skill development and learning how to balance all these different polarities. So for example, you have a manifestor and a scientist or a mystic, and they're opposites. The manifestor wants to go out in the world, is constantly going out in the world. And the scientist mystic is constantly going into the, into the shower, into the hut, into the sweat lodge.
Yeah. So I want to do all the things. Leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Thank you so much, Georgette. This is
very helpful for Michelle, actually.
Good.
Why do you want to do these things and then you're super grumpy? And I'm like, because I'm around people.
And this is a good point. If you decide to go check out your Life Purpose, the report, the download, if you have your friends or families, all you need is a birth date, I think, for that. You can plug it in and find out some information for them too. So it can be really helpful in relationships. Yeah.
Okay. Duly noted.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And all of that feels very, very right on, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to go back and watch this again later. So
yeah. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, because it's, to summarize something like that in 15 minutes is a little challenging.
I'm sure that we could go super deep on all of those, and it would, be quite intensive.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to touch upon, let's zoom out a little bit, Georgette, here with the, something that Kat and I do consider whenever we're looking at these bodies of knowledge is, what are the societal implications of this? How do we tune into the collective consciousness in terms of knowing the purpose and knowing these archetypes?
Yeah, I'm always contemplating that question, but as a humanitarian healer, I feel constantly connected to the global heart. And I truly believe, and I know that anyone who reaches a certain path in even their scientific research will understand the interconnectivity. On a spiritual level, it's any moment of your transcendence of a dark shadow, of something unresolved, instantly has an effect in the marketplace. And that is my personal belief. It's our deep work, our willingness to go towards that which every part of us wants to avoid and find liberation is our greatest contribution to the creation of a better world. And we do have a purpose, and the more we are clear and not distracted by being caught up in the loops of our distress or our preoccupations, our addictions to avoid it, the more we have the energy, the free energy to do what we came here to do more fully and make a greater impact. I mean, just think about it. If we're feeling like aligned and happy and whole, even walking through the grocery store, we're going to emanate that, and we're going to interact with people differently, and it's going to have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. And I think some of, I'm sure those of you tuning in, watching, or listening can relate to that feeling of just knowing, how do we feel when we know our purpose, when we're in alignment with our purpose, versus how do we feel when we're not, or how do we interact with people, or how do people interact with us from that like frenetic questioning, uncertainty space. It feels destabilizing. It feels disorienting. It feels like there's nowhere for that energy to go. So I think, Georgette, one thing you said in there in particular, and I've got to go back and listen to it because I love how you articulated that, that one piece about the way that the energy, I'm doing a terrible job summarizing, but you said one thing that I just loved, and I've got to go back and hear it again, but about funneling that energy in and having a conduit in a certain way.
Yeah, I think of, just the world as it is today is, I'm not going to use bad words because it's just not my way, but I feel like it, it's just obvious that our unconscious is being made manifest. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're unconscious, like somebody else is unconscious. It's all of our unconscious.
Yeah.
Like that takes a lot of strength to say, this is a reflection of me too. And how can I use that reflection to face the small piece that I have, where I can become more conscious, more loving, more compassionate, more contributory. So there's something about also being aligned with purpose gives us like this kind of like, it's like a motivational energy that you just wake up with it. And it's like, oh, I'm going to do it, even though it's hard, like I'm going to go do this podcast today because there's an alignment with purpose. And so there's like even if it's hard, there's always like a massive gift that comes on the other side. And that's, I think ultimately that's all we can do is show up from that place, push through whatever's stopping us, and receive, contribute and receive the gift on the other side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes and yes. And, I think also that we get this, like, as you're telling me these things, and when we have these awarenesses of self, then we can kind of look at our lives from a different perspective, where we can love ourselves a little bit more and be softer with ourselves in those places where I might, be like, wow, why can't I this? Why can't this happen for me? Why don't I want to do this? Having conversations around, I don't have any children, and having conversations around children, the first thing my mind thinks after that would be really awesome and they're super cute and sweet and that would be fun is, I would never be alone again. Oh my God. Like what? Do such a thing. I just can't, like, that sounds horrible to me.
No alone time ever for the rest of your life.
No alone time ever. And that it's okay. And then also, like, looking back in childhood, I always had weird clothes on. I was always dressed like nobody else. And I was really shamed by my brother, who was very conservative, and those parts of us that were like, well, this is just who I was and who I am. And maybe our parents didn't accept those parts, or our community didn't accept those parts. And so we shut those pieces down. And then when we can start to feel into, oh, that was my trying to express what this was. And oh, I took on a wound, I took on a trauma when I was trying to express what that was, whether it was, being the artist or the mystic or whatever those pieces are. And then, okay, so what does that look like for me now? Mm-hmm. How can I embrace this part of me now, love myself more, accept myself more? And I think in so doing, have more space to love and accept other people exactly for who they are. Oh, I got it. You need a lot of alone time, or, oh, I got it. You need to be super creative and artistic. So it's going to take a couple extra hours for you to prepare this space for this event or whatever.
Yeah. Very helpful in marriages too, by the way, where you're, with someone like 24/7 to understand those differences are inherent and there's nothing wrong. There's no dilemma. There's not a problem. They're just differences. Yeah.
And the more that we can, look into again, how is this impacting everybody around us, where when we give ourselves permission to express all of those pieces and live authentically. I mean, I think that's really something that you were speaking to is and it's so funny to me, you've got, and I was kind of side speaking, stage whisper to Kat, she's got 3 of these archetypes that need a lot of like space and alone time. Like, no wonder. Okay. But
that's true.
Right. To be authentic in that and own it. And that's okay. And then giving, that inherent owning. And, for what you said to me, Georgette, of like, that is the beauty way, like the beauty path. I have, and my Venus and Taurus and all these other parts that really speak to, like, I love beautiful things. That's just how it's got to be. And knowing that and owning it, having no shame around it, releasing that, and then giving everybody else in our lives permission to own the parts of themselves, to live authentically and to show up in total unabashed expression of the light of all of these really beautiful and different and yet totally harmonious archetypes.
Beautiful. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So, I think that we've already kind of talked a little bit about some of the action steps. Like once you discover what this purpose is and these different aspects of who you are and your purpose, what are some of the action steps that we can take to implement and integrate these?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just really quickly, I know we're getting close to the end of our time, but as you know very well, information, knowledge, stays right there, like right here, unless it's embodied. So I would recommend everyone to go find out what their life purpose archetype is. And then to, first of all, contemplate that, to sit with it just like you would to contemplate a beautiful flower. You'll learn what it's about, but to contemplate it in a meditative state, just quiet and contemplative. Attunement. As you attune to it, because it's you will start to receive intuitive information about what that means for you, about you, past, present, and future. You'll just start to intuitively understand and sink in from a little bit more embodied place, just through contemplation. Once you've done a little contemplation, then moving it into some kind of creative embodied expression. So bring it into the body. Write about it, draw it, create a Pinterest board with images that represent that archetype to you. I was going to say for you, Kat, that your soul's, being that number 1 at the soul, the soul's fulfillment, if I were to describe that as a goddess, I would say that would be like Artemis. Mm-hmm. So I would put Artemis on your, the bow and arrow. She's like, boom, she's going for it. Mm-hmm. I would put her on your Pinterest board or your collage. I would dance Artemis. I would dance, whatever it is that I'm understanding from my research, my learning, through the contemplation into an embodied practice. And those 3 steps will help to bring it in, because there's nothing you actually really have to do any more than just consciously activate your purpose, and it will show you. Because then when you're making decisions, especially big decisions, like ask this question: is this choice going to contribute to my life purpose expression, or is it aligned with my life purpose expression? And there's so many distractions. There's so many things pulling us in a million directions, and that will really help to just say, no. I mean, it would be fun, but it's not it. It's not going to take me on the path that I'm actually here to live. So those are the pieces, like go from information to contemplation to creative expression to constantly using that as a navigation. Like, how is this choice I'm about to make aligned with purpose?
Beautiful.
Love that. Love that breakdown. It's just so succinct. So if you didn't write that down, go back and listen again. And I think that we all would benefit a lot from, a lot of times it feels like we do a reading, we get information about ourselves, and yet there's the integration of that information we miss out on.
Absolutely. And I love, I mean, the part of me that loves spreadsheets and flowcharts and everything is so happy with
it's
that.
It's such a
right
flow
now.
chart.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
beautiful flow chart thing.
Yeah, thank you, Georgette. That's like check. It's very
Yeah, and just finally, if you are a practitioner, a healing practitioner, or a coach, this is something you can instantly integrate into your practice by discovering what your client's life purpose archetype is. You can weave that right into your very first session with them. It will provide you and them instantly with more of a connection, because they will feel that you get them automatically. And it will also help you to see what they're challenged with, because of course there's always the unintegrated side of, what the potential is of each of the archetypes. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I hope this has all been helpful and beneficial to you and to everyone watching and listening.
I love this as an idea as a practitioner to help to support our people more. Sometimes I feel like things that are easy for me are so challenging for other people, and vice versa. And so sometimes working with clients, there's that, how can I help them access that part of themselves, and to truly understand them at this deeper level would definitely help being able to actualize things in life that seems like a struggle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, and then, Kat, for you, for part of your gift, part of something, maybe part of your inquiry has been, for example, the practice, right? And structure, like you teach practice. And now we know why. Another layer of discovery around the 5 is having that structure, that sustainability, something to return to. And so then not only teaching from our gifts, but teaching from what we've had to process from the shadow. And I really love that. I think that's
that is really, really beautiful. Sometimes, some of our greatest contributions come from those areas that were most difficult to embody. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Georgette, would you, what would be the best way I know you said you were planning to share a PDF. What would be the best way? Do you want to put the link in the chat box here?
I will do that. But I'd just like to say, the URL, it's lifeblessing.com. So lifeblessing.com. And in the drop-down tabs on the far right, you'll see a free life purpose assessment. And you can go and find out your life purpose right away.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Lifeblessing.com.
Yes.
Free life purpose assessment. And Georgette, what is a way that you really love to work with people? How can people reach out to you?
Well, I am a coach and a mentor, but my passion right now is actually teaching other transformational leaders, coaches, and healers this methodology. And so the best way to get in touch with me is through my website. There's a pop-up that, with an access, a way to connect with me. And if anyone is interested in that training, then I guess that would be what I would be most interested in talking about. But you could explore my website too. I do readings also. And yeah.
Amazing. So if anyone is interested in integrating, not only for themselves, but maybe for your clients, for your students, whoever, pursuing that training with Georgette, it is absolutely a really lovely, multifaceted approach. We did a little bit gloss over here. I know, Georgette, we had a little bit more time when I received a reading from you. And so I do highly recommend reach out to her. She's wonderful. And also, like, I would love to speak, Georgette, to the space that you hold and the stories that you tell associated with sharing this. You do definitely give context, and there's a kind of leading through process that is really wonderful in the exploration of these purpose archetypes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So lifeblessing.com if you would like to reach out to Georgette. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. It was such
my pleasure.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
I'm great. I'm amazing. Thank you so much for the reading.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. And then for those of you who, again, I highly recommend tuning into that Healing the Archetypes episode that we did, and the Kings and Queens episode if you're interested in tuning into a little bit more about work with archetypes. If you missed any of our past episodes, we invite you to please go catch up on YouTube. You can view all of our video past episodes, iTunes and Stitcher to listen into the audio version. This is our 63rd episode. So we've got, over 63 hours now, because we go long sometimes. So we've got hours and hours and hours of amazing free content for you. And you can also find all of those links through our website, shamansistersessions.com. We are also on Patreon. This content is totally free that we are offering to you. But if you feel called to make a donation, we would really love to receive that support, because there are plenty of behind the scenes fees that we don't really share with you or that, like upload fees.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot. We pay for a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So if you feel called to support us, please go on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions if you would like to make a donation for this work. We would really appreciate that. And on that note, thank you so much to Jacqueline and Olivier, our alchemical allies, and all of the other patrons and donors who have made donations over the year and a half that we've been doing this. So thank you so much for supporting our work. We love you. We appreciate you. And it is your generosity that enables us to continue this work today. Anything to add?
Just that for me, the thing that I am producing and selling at this moment is the Healer's Process, which was my 3-month intensive online experiential course for healers, shamans, psychics, all those that are looking to go deeply into working on themselves and working with others. And it has individual coaching and an amazing retreat. So Healer's Process, you can access that through my website, katherinebird.com. And next week, we will be back with you on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific to be discussing signs that you are a healer. So you can tune back in, and we'll be posting about that on our Shaman Sister Sessions newsletter, which you can access through our website as well if you want to get updates on what we're working on every week. At the week after that, we're going to have Katerina Satori.
No, week after we're doing Healer Archetypes.
No? Mm-mm. I don't know. Maybe?
Sometime in May, we're having another special guest, Katherine Satori, on as to speak about initiation through the feminine leadership path.
Yeah. And next week on the 21st, on Tuesday, I am hosting a free masterclass on the Healer Archetypes, which is free. And if you want access to that, you can check that out. I don't know where, through me on my Facebook page, maybe reach out to me, and you can find information on that, or it's on Eventbrite, is the Healer Archetypes. So we're healing the Healer Archetypes.
Absolutely. And speaking of master classes, I've got one on Thursday. We're busy people. We have a lot going on. Thank you for sticking with us. On Thursday, the 19th, so this Thursday, I have a master class on soul codes and energetic signatures. If you would like to tune in for that. I don't remember what time it is, at 2 o'clock, I think, 2 to 3:30. That sounds right. 2 o'clock on Thursday. So please reach out to me if you would like to register. There is a registration link for that. It is totally free, but you have to have the link to log in.
And I will say that this last weekend, I had the pleasure of coming to help support Michelle at her I Am Alchemy retreat, which was the first retreat of this year-long program. And it was incredible, amazing transformations and integrations, and definitely some major shifts going on there. And if you're interested in that longer term work with Michelle, I would highly recommend getting on the waiting list for next year, because I think that program is definitely going to fill up quickly.
I've already got an interest list going. So thank you so much. And it was so good to have you here.
It was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And Georgette, again, thank you so much. It is such an incredible honor to have you and share this amazing knowledge.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And just so glad to see everyone so deeply desiring to make a contribution and to sync up with that beauty of life purpose essence.
Thank you, Georgette.
Thank you.
I appreciate your work. Thanks for bringing it to the world.
Thank you. Lifeblessing.com. Go check it out.
Goodbye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.